am Olivia Walker, and if someone had told me that my life would take a drastic turn because of an overheard phone call, I would have laughed in their face. But it was true. Everything began at that moment, the moment I realized that my father, the man who always smiled brightly and reassured me that everything would be okay, was actually facing the risk of losing everything. I grew up in a middle-class family in the small town of Riversdale, Oregon. My father, Henry Walker, owned a furniture manufacturing company known for its beautifully crafted oak tables and kitchen cabinets. My mother, Laura Walker, was an elementary school teacher who devoted herself to caring for our family, keeping our home filled with laughter and warmth. My parents were the typical hard-working American couple of their generation, loving and dedicated, but rarely sharing their struggles with their children. We weren't wealthy, but we didn't have to worry about money either. I attended the best school in the area, joined the art club, and spent weekends on family outings in the nearby hills. Although my father was always busy with work, he never forgot to ask me about my drawings or the dreams I wanted to pursue. To me, life was almost perfect. Until one evening when I accidentally overheard my father's phone conversation. That day, I came home earlier than usual after finishing my first ever job interview. I was about to head to the kitchen when I heard my father's voice coming from his office. Normally calm and reassuring, his voice was tense and sharp this time. "No, I won't let you take over my company," my father said, his words clear and cutting. "I've worked my entire life to build it, and I'm not going to give up." I froze in the hallway. Someone was trying to take over his company? Why hadn't he ever mentioned this before? I wanted to step in and ask, but my feet felt rooted to the spot. I stayed there and listened to a few more lines, enough to understand that his business was in serious financial danger. Then, he hung up. At dinner that night, my father seemed like his usual self. He joked about a strange customer who wanted to order a table in a bizarre shape. My mother laughed, but I stayed quiet, observing him closely. I noticed the fine lines around his eyes and how his smile didn't quite reach them. These were details I had never paid attention to before. It dawned on me, he didn't want my mother or me to worry, but that only made my anxiety grow. His company was his pride and joy, the product of a lifetime's work. If he lost it, I couldn't imagine how it would affect him. That entire night I lay awake, my mind racing with questions. I didn't know much about business or finance, but one thing was certain. I couldn't just stand by and watch my family be consumed by this storm. I had to do something. I didn't know what I could do yet, but I was determined to figure it out. The next morning, after my father left the house, I opened my laptop and searched for information about his company. It didn't take long to find out who was trying to take it over. A powerful businessman from Portland named Richard Blake. From that moment, I knew my life would never be the same again. I couldn't just let everything fall apart without doing anything. After gathering all the information I could about Richard Blake, the man targeting my father's company, I decided I had to meet him in person. It sounded crazy, but I had no other choice. My father would never ask anyone for help, and I knew he wouldn't allow me to get involved. So, I had to take matters into my own hands. Blake Industries, Richard Blake's corporation, was located in a sleek high-rising building in downtown Portland. I had never stepped foot in a place so grand and powerful. The lobby was vast, with polished marble columns, and people in expensive suits hurried by without giving a second glance to a young woman like me. I walked straight to the reception desk, where a neatly dressed woman in uniform peered at me through gold-rimmed glasses. "May I help you?" she asked, her tone professional but slightly cold. "I'd like to see Mr. Richard Blake," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She raised an eyebrow, as if I had just said something ridiculous. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but it's very important. It's about my father's company, Walker Furniture." She stared at me for a moment, then sighed, as though she was used to people showing up without appointments. "One moment, please," she said before dialing an internal number. A few minutes later, I was directed to the top floor. My heart pounded as I stepped out of the elevator. Richard Blake's office was enormous, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city. He stood there with his back to me, his tall frame and neatly styled salt-and-pepper hair commanding presence. "Olivia Walker, is that right?" he said, turning around. His cold, piercing eyes locked onto mine. "You're here about your father's company, am I correct?" I nodded, swallowing the lump of anxiety in my throat. "Yes, Mr. Blake. I want you to stop the takeover of Walker Furniture. It means everything to my father." He smirked, though it wasn't exactly a friendly smile. I'm sorry, Miss Walker, but this is business. No one backs down just because of a polite request. I clenched my fists, refusing to let fear show on my face. My father has spent his entire life building that company. He's created real value for the community. Can't you reconsider? Richard Blake walked over to his desk and sat down slowly. You have a strong spirit, I like that, he said. But this isn't as simple as you think. However, he paused, his gaze turning calculating. There's a way. If you truly want to save your father's company, we can make a deal. A deal? I asked, sensing something was off. My son, Ethan Blake, needs to grow up and take life seriously. He's been living too freely with no sense of responsibility for the family business. I need someone by his side to help him settle down and become a worthy successor. I was stunned. What do you mean? Richard leaned back in his chair, a slight smile playing on his lips. Marry Ethan. If you agree, I'll withdraw from the takeover and ensure your father's company remains safe. I froze in disbelief. This proposal was beyond imagination. Marrying someone to save a company? I had anticipated many things, but not this. Yet, when I thought of my father and everything he had sacrificed his entire life to build, I knew I couldn't reject the offer outright. I need time to think about it, I said, my voice hoarse with emotion. Very well, but don't take too long, Richard Blake replied. Opportunities like this don't last forever, Miss Walker. Leaving his office, my mind spun with the weight of the decision. I stood at a crossroads that no one ever wanted to face. From that moment, I understood that my life would never be the same again. I couldn't sleep that night. Richard Blake's proposal kept echoing in my head. Marry his son, Ethan Blake, to save my father's company. It sounded like something straight out of a bizarre novel, yet it was now the reality I faced. My choices were limited. Either accept or watch my father's lifetime of work collapse. The next morning, I found myself once again standing in front of the Blake Industries building, my heart heavy. Richard Blake gave me a satisfied smile when he saw me return so soon. He didn't ask any questions, but simply led me to a conference room where Ethan was waiting. Ethan Blake was nothing like I had imagined. I expected a polished, arrogant, rich kid. Instead, he appeared in a wrinkled, short-sleeved shirt and faded jeans. His brown hair was slightly messy and his blue eyes looked hazy, as if he had just woken up from a long night of partying. When I entered, he glanced up, raising an eyebrow. So, you're the girl my father wants me to marry? He let out a sarcastic laugh, a smirk spreading across his face. What is this, some kind of joke? I didn't flinch. Listen, I don't want to be here either. But we both know that neither of us has many choices, right? Ethan shrugged, leaning back in his chair, a hint of amusement in his eyes. Yeah, you're right. I guess my father put you in a position where you couldn't say no. And he's doing the same thing to you, I retorted. Ethan chuckled softly, this time without the sarcasm. He extended his hand. I'm Ethan. Looks like we'll have to get used to each other. I shook his hand, feeling the warmth of his slightly calloused palm. I'm Olivia. Let's try to get through this with as little pain as possible. We began dating according to his father's plan. Our meetings were meticulously arranged. Dinners at upscale restaurants, attending concerts, and making public appearances as the perfect couple. But nothing about it was perfect. An invisible wall remained between us, and we both knew this marriage was just a business deal. At first, Ethan had no interest in his work or family responsibilities. He spent most of his time partying with friends, ignoring his father's reminders. It drove me crazy more than once. Do you have any idea what your father expects from you? I confronted him one night, after he came home reeking of alcohol. That's his problem, not mine, he replied lazily. And what about me? I shot back. I've sacrificed a lot to be here. Do you think I wanted to live a life that was arranged like this? Ethan paused, staring at me intently. I never really thought about it that way. I guess both of us are stuck in this, aren't we? After that conversation, things began to change. Ethan started showing up at the office more often. He listened during meetings and began taking his role more seriously. Perhaps I helped him realize that if he didn't take action, everything would crumble. However, not everyone was pleased with the change. His mother, Victoria Blake, always watched me with a scrutinizing gaze, She made no effort to hide her discomfort with my presence in the family. "Olivia, I heard you've proposed some changes to the company," she said during a family dinner. "That's quite bold. Are you sure you have enough experience for that?" I kept a polite smile on my face, though I felt far from comfortable inside. "I'm just trying to support Ethan and the company through these challenging times, Mrs. Blake." She pressed her lips together, her eyes still filled with skepticism. "You should remember that not everyone is so quick to welcome outsiders into our world." I clenched my hand into a fist under the table. "I understand that very well, Mrs. Blake. But I'm not here to be an outsider. I'm here to help this family and the company overcome its challenges." The silent battle between me and Victoria Blake had just begun, and I knew there would be many obstacles ahead. But I had come too far to turn back. I was determined to win the game they had forced me to play. The marriage between Ethan and me was relatively smooth in the first few years. Although there was never any deep passion between us, we built a relationship based on mutual respect. Ethan gradually improved at work, proving that he was capable of more than just relying on his father. If his father were still alive, he would have been proud of the man Ethan was becoming. But then, life threw us another curveball, and everything was turned upside down once again. We decided to try to build a real family. I wanted to have children, hoping it would bring us closer together. But after several months of trying without success, I began to worry. We underwent a series of medical tests, and finally, the doctor delivered news that left both of us silent in the examination room. "I'm sorry, but Ethan is unable to have children," the doctor said gently, as though afraid his words might shatter our hopes completely. I felt Ethan tense up beside me. I reached out to hold his hand, but he pulled away, avoiding my gaze. The entire drive home, neither of us spoke a word. After that day, Ethan changed. He was no longer the man who was striving to work hard and build a future. Instead, he seemed to regress into the irresponsible version of himself from the past, avoiding conversations and spending more time drinking and attending late-night parties. On the rare occasions he was home, he was either irritable or cold toward me. "We can't keep living like this," I tried to talk to him one night after he came home late, reeking of alcohol. "Do you think I want this?" he snapped, his voice strained with anger. "I never wanted this marriage in the first place. It was all for my father, and now what? I have nothing." His words cut through me like a blade. I had sacrificed so much, putting my hopes in a better future for both of us, but Ethan had now completely given up. I realized that I couldn't continue depending on him for happiness. I needed a new purpose for my life. A few weeks later, I decided to establish a charity foundation for children with cancer, using the connections and experience I had gained from the Blake family. This initiative not only gave me a renewed sense of motivation, but also helped me understand the true meaning of dedication and responsibility. While I poured my heart into the charity work, Ethan continued to spiral deeper into self-destruction. His absences from the company became more frequent. The board of directors was growing impatient, and I couldn't stand on the sidelines any longer. One evening, I decided to confront him directly. "Ethan, you can't keep doing this," I said firmly. "Do you have any idea how serious the situation at the company is? They're about to lose faith in your leadership." Ethan gave a sarcastic smirk. "Why do you care? It's not your company." "I don't care anymore. If they want me gone, fine, there's nothing worth fighting for." It felt like I was talking to a complete stranger. Ethan was becoming more distant, drowning himself in disappointment and resentment. No matter how hard I tried, I knew I couldn't save a man who refused to save himself. Gradually, I shifted my focus entirely to the charity foundation, avoiding unnecessary confrontations with Ethan. All that remained between us was silence and an unbridgeable gap. I wondered if this was a sign that our arranged marriage was nearing its end. As time passed, our arguments became more frequent and intense. Ethan sank further into despair and aimlessness. On several occasions, he blamed me for everything that had gone wrong in his life. At first, I tried to endure it, but my patience had its limits. One night, Ethan came home drunk. When I tried to talk to him, everything exploded. "What do you want me to do, Olivia? Since the day I married you, my life has been nothing but failure," he shouted, his bloodshot eyes filled with anger. "Don't blame me, Ethan. You gave up on everything before either of us had a real chance to try," I fired back, my voice trembling with rage. "A chance? What chance?" he sneered. "This whole marriage was just a joke orchestrated by my father and you?" He forced me into this, and you're nothing but a puppet, doing everything to protect your family's damn company." His words hit me like a punch to the gut. I had sacrificed so much, put in every effort to support him, and all I got in return was bitterness. "I've had enough, Ethan. If you want this to end, fine, but don't think for a second that I'll let you drag me down with you." Ethan stared at me coldly, then let out a bitter laugh. "End it? You think I'll just let you walk away that easily? You have no idea who you're dealing with." The conversation ended with a tense, threatening silence. A few days later, I received a packet of documents, divorce papers, from Ethan. It seemed he had decided to give up on everything, but I knew this wasn't the end of it. I immediately contacted my family's lawyer, Mr. Bennett, who had worked with my father for many years. I wanted to ensure that both my rights and the company would be protected. When I met with him, I received news that left me stunned. "Olivia, there's something you need to know," Mr. Bennett said as he opened an important file. "Before he passed away, your father transferred full ownership of the company to you. Ethan has no control over it whatsoever." I stared at him in shock. "What do you mean? Ethan doesn't know about this?" "No, he doesn't. Your father handled it very discreetly. He wanted to protect you from any potential risks." The information left me both surprised and relieved. Even after his death, my father had thought about my well-being. I silently thanked him for his foresight, but also knew that this would drive Ethan into a fury. And I was right. A few days later, Ethan showed up at my house in a fit of rage. "You think you've won, don't you?" he shouted. "You secretly took everything. Your father stole my inheritance, and my mother didn't leave me a damn thing. It's all your fault." I stood tall and faced him. "Ethan, you destroyed everything yourself. No one stole anything from you. My father did what he had to do to protect his family's legacy, and if your mother left her estate to me, it's because she saw something you never did. That I deserve it. Don't give me that self-righteous crap." Ethan roared, but I could see the desperation in his eyes. He stormed out, leaving behind a whirlwind of emotions within me. This marriage was truly over. There was nothing left to salvage. From that moment, I knew I had to stand up for myself, protect what was mine, and keep moving forward. The next day, I signed the divorce papers, feeling more at peace than ever before. For the first time, I truly felt in control of my life. A new chapter awaited me, one free of burdens and ties to the past. Now, I was Olivia Walker, a completely free woman. After signing the papers, I knew I needed to focus entirely on work. Walker Furniture was now my responsibility, and I couldn't let Ethan's failures jeopardize the legacy my father had built. To help me navigate the challenging early months, I hired a business consultant named David Carter, an expert in corporate restructuring. "You have great potential, Olivia," David said during our first meeting. "But the important thing is that you need to learn to trust your own decisions. It won't be easy, but I believe you can do it." His encouragement boosted my confidence. Under David's guidance, I gradually became familiar with financial strategies, human resources management, and new product development projects. I started to feel that I wasn't just preserving my father's legacy, but also elevating it to new heights. The business reports for the first quarter after I took over showed significant improvement, and for the first time I experienced a sense of pride I had never felt before. Although I was busy with work, I didn't forget another responsibility: taking care of my former mother-in-law, Victoria Blake. After Ethan had left my life, Victoria seemed to see me in a different light. Perhaps her final days had given her time to reflect on the past and the conflicts that had strained our relationship. "I didn't expect you to still be here for me," she said one afternoon when I visited. "After everything that happened, I thought you would have abandoned me." I smiled gently. "No matter what, you're still part of a family I once belonged to. I don't want anyone to face illness alone." The time I spent with Victoria became a period of healing not only for her but for me as well. We had long conversations about mistakes, the unrealistic expectations she had placed on Ethan, and the pressures she had endured. I began to understand more about why Ethan had become the person he was, even though it couldn't change the past. Victoria gradually weakened, but I remained by her side. One quiet evening, as I adjusted her pillows, she gently took my hand. "Thank you, Olivia. You are a strong and remarkable woman. I hope you find true happiness in the future," she whispered, her voice weak but sincere. Tears welled up in my eyes, but I kept smiling. "I will, Mrs. Blake, and thank you for believing in me." She passed away a few weeks later, in my arms. I personally arranged her funeral, ensuring everything was dignified and meaningful. Ethan did not show up, which saddened me, though it was no longer a surprise. A few weeks after the funeral, Victoria's lawyer Charles Fisher contacted me. "Olivia, there are some matters in Mrs. Blake's will that you need to know. I believe you'll want to come to the office to hear the details in person." When I arrived, I was surprised to see Ethan there. He sat with a disheveled appearance, dark circles under his eyes, and a face filled with resentment. A young woman, likely his new girlfriend, sat beside him, visibly uncomfortable. "You're here," Ethan growled, his eyes full of hostility. "I'm sure you manipulated everything to take what was my mother's." I didn't respond. I waited for Mr. Fisher to begin reading the will. When he reached the most important part, that Victoria had left the entire estate, including her mansion and savings, to me, with the condition that the funds be donated to my charity. Ethan's face contorted in rage. "What up?" he shouted, leaping to his feet. "No way, this is a scam. My mother couldn't have done this." "Sorry, Ethan," Mr. Fisher said calmly. Mrs. Victoria confirmed this many times before her passing. This was her final wish. The woman next to Ethan immediately stood up, giving him a look of disdain. "You told me we'd inherit a large sum of money. Now there's nothing left. I'm not sticking around for this." She stormed out, leaving Ethan standing there, lost and bewildered. I said nothing more. As I walked out of the lawyer's office, I felt an overwhelming sense of relief. This inheritance wasn't just wealth. It was a testament to the journey I had endured, a journey full of pain but also of healing and rebirth. Leaving the office that day, I felt like a massive weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Ethan was now nothing more than a shell of failure. The one thing he believed could save his life was gone. He had been abandoned by the woman who had accompanied him and was now left with nothing but bitterness. But that was no longer my concern. I didn't feel triumphant, only at peace. Ethan had chosen his path and I had chosen mine. Now I could live free from the burdens, expectations, and toxic relationships that had once held me back. In the days that followed, I focused all my energy on both the company and my charity. David Carter, my business consultant, and I worked tirelessly to steer Walker Furniture toward a more modern and sustainable future. We expanded into the eco-friendly furniture market, introducing products made from recycled wood and environmentally sustainable materials. The new design team brought innovative ideas that captured the attention of magazines and investors alike. "You're doing a great job, Olivia," David said during a performance review. "Revenue is up 35% this quarter, and we've received numerous partnership offers." I smiled, pride swelling inside me. "Thank you, David. I couldn't have done this without your support and the team's hard work." But the company's success was only one part of the story. The charity foundation I had established for children with cancer was also making a significant impact. We built more clinics, provided support to families of young patients, and organized fundraising events across the state of Oregon. The thank you letters from families we helped never failed to move me. One day, during a visit to a children's hospital, a little girl named Sophie ran up and hugged me. "Miss Olivia, thank you for helping my mom," she said, her eyes shining brightly. "My mom says I'll get better soon and go home." I knelt down and hugged her tightly. "You're a strong girl, Sophie. I believe you'll recover soon and go on to do all the amazing things you dream of." Moments like this reminded me why I couldn't stop. This work was not only to honor my father but to create a new legacy, a place where others could find hope and strength, just as I once had. My life had finally found the balance I had always wanted. I lived in my parents' house but had renovated it to fit my new life. The old childhood paintings on the walls were now replaced by photos from charity trips and projects I was proud of. One evening, while organizing files on my desk, I received a message from Sarah, my best friend from the foundation. "Olivia, we need to celebrate. The latest report shows record-breaking donations." I smiled and replied, "That's amazing, Sarah. Set up a meeting. I'll treat everyone to a big dinner." That night, in the cheerful atmosphere of the celebration, I looked around and realized that I had truly escaped the shadows of my past. Ethan, Richard Blake, and the old pressures were now distant memories. I had reclaimed my strength, gained control of my life, and no longer depended on anyone. When I stood to give a speech thanking the team, everyone's eyes sparkled with joy. We had all overcome challenges to achieve the success we celebrated today. Thank you all for standing by me, I said. We've accomplished something incredible and I believe the best is yet to come. Applause filled the room, and I smiled brightly, knowing that I had finally found where I belonged. A life I fully owned, filled with hope and aspirations clearer than ever before. Olivia Walker's story is a journey of overcoming adversity to find strength and purpose. From a painful arranged marriage, she learned to stand up for herself, gain control of her family's company, and build a successful career. Through resilience, Olivia not only protected her father's legacy but also created new value through her charitable work. Her story reminds us that, in life, even in the face of loss and betrayal, determination and compassion can lead the way to a brighter future. What do you think of Olivia Walker's journey? Do you resonate with her struggles and triumphs? Share your thoughts below. Don't forget to follow the channel to discover more inspiring stories about life and family.